Episodes like this are always difficult for many reasons, not least of which is thinking about Chester, who passed away sadly last year. The thing is, the guy made no secret of the way that he was, and all he wanted to do was make the lives of others a bit better through his music. And in my opinion, he succeeded. Linkin Park were my first favourite band ever, before Simple Plan, before Walshy Sleeves, before any other band. They formed in Agoura Hills, California in 1996, and despite only minor lineup shifts in the early goings, the band does have a signature lineup which still holds true to this day, with the exception of Chester, may he rest in peace. Anyway, the band came in the mid-90s and sort of changed how nu metal at the time was starting to sound by adding a more popular, more mainstream sort of influence, but it worked out well for them, so can't really fault that. Anyway, it's Backtracking, and this time it's Linkin Park. Let's face the music. We start with the band's debut album, Hybrid Theory. Released in 2003 Warner Brothers Records and produced by the always awesome Don Gilmore, this is, well, it's just a good album. I mean, it's not the best-selling rock album since Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction for nothing. It's also the first album that I listened to when it was released when I was 8 years old. I was seriously that much of a fan of these guys that my parents got me their debut and I fell in love. Even 18 years after that, this album is still awesome to me. I don't even think that's a nostalgia thing. I've just listened to so much music by this point that even when it comes to albums I've listened to long ago in the past, I can either look back with positive thoughts or negative ones. This album fits in the format, no doubt. In fact, this band helped me actually get into rock music. I started out as a pop fan as a kid, then became a huge Eminem fan a bit later on, but when I heard my first Linkin Park song in One Step Closer, that was it. No band at the time had ever hooked me in fully with just one song. Nowadays happens a lot more, but back then, I was a lot pickier, believe you me. I didn't realise this at the time, but the title would actually be a good description of the band's sound, where they mashed together different things. Hybrid Theory just happened to sound like a nu metal album at a time where that genre was getting more mainstream, with fellow bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit slipping through the cracks as well. In terms of structure, I wouldn't call this a typical nu metal / rapcore style album, despite the time period that it was released. There's a lot happening all at once, but it carries the songs so well, and the chemistry between the two vocalists is just stellar, and the balance between Mike Schneider's rapping and Chester Bennington's clean singing and awesome screams is so well executed. In terms of lyrics, we get some Linkin Park benchmarks as the subjects deal with Chester's drug abuse, depression, and his very fractured childhood, including a divorce at a very early age. There's way too much of that to go into, and I don't really want to go into it anyway because it'd just be a waste of time, and it really wouldn't be the right thing to do personally. Chester is one of my favourite vocalists ever, with his fantastic range, emotion, and balance being key points. Mike Shinoda's rapping is also good, and he backs up heavy moments well, along with dropping good bars over some really good metal and rock influenced beats, and just good riffs. Brad Delson's guitar work is good, with nice, heavy, chunky chords and riffs that crash so well with everything else. Dave Phoenix Farrell's bass works is just also good, with a deep drive and really good chords, despite not being a full-time member at the time, but I still think that he counts by this point. Joe Hohn's DJ work is great, with good scratches and awesome pans, and just a really good flair and sort of a theatricality to things. And Rob Bourden's drumming is also great, with heavy work behind the kit, good rhythms, and just good timing to boot. Standout songs include One Step Closer, With You, In the End, Paper Cut, and my favourite in Runaway. This album is just iconic and awesome, with awesome production, performances, and accessibility. There's really not much else that I can say. I can just really recommend this album. I mean, it's a benchmark, really. Might be a bit hyperbole, but I honestly believe that. Next is the band's second album, Meteora, released in 2003 through Warner Brothers and Machine Shop and produced again by Don Gilmore. Linkin Park themselves actually helped behind the booth. Usually you think that would mean that there's too many cooks in the kitchen, but actually it helps out quite a lot. If anything, this album is a perfect sequel to their previous one. It's a good example of what a follow-up album should be. It adds a lot of new elements, but the blueprint of their debut is still there. It doesn't blatantly rip off anything from the previous one, and the songs Figure Out and Session from this album sound like sequels to One Step Closer and Cure for the Itch respectively. That alone is a good indication of this album's balance because there's more influences of rap, but it doesn't steal the spotlight. If anything, it's heavier because of that. The guitar riffs aren't just big chord after big chord like they were in Hybrid Theory, and there's more impact because of that, and it helps to carry the songs along a bit better. A lot of people do say that this album is softer than Hybrid Theory, and I have to ask what in the sweet hell they were smoking when they first heard this album. It's still super heavy, and it has its softer moments like last time. What are you going to tell me that Crawling was super heavy all the way through? Exactly. The band do take more risks with their sound, but it doesn't fully leave their comfort zone. If anything, it just expands what the band were comfortable with at the time, which again is what a sequel album should do. There's a lot of experimentation with the sound, and there's even a song with just Chester singing, and that song is still pretty awesome. Everything about this is great. There's even a slight Wu-Tang Clan influence with the song Nobody's Listening. In terms of lyrics, it's still about depression and dark thoughts, but with focus on recovery from Chester's addiction, so there is some change in positiveness with that. In terms of structure, well, I kind of described it earlier, but the focus on balance between the rap and rock is well handled, and it gives everyone a chance to shine through. Chester's vocals continue to amaze me with fantastic range as always and good production tricks to help. Mike's rapping has improved too with more multi-syllable rhymes and more complex delivery, and I like multi-syllable rhymes, just a personal thing. Brad's guitar riffs are better, playing a bit quicker and building up to bigger choruses. Phoenix's bass work continues to drive deeply, playing heavier and lower stuff. Rob's drumming patterns are still good, switching from hip-hop influenced rhythms to heavy rock smashing effortlessly, and Han's work on the turntables is stellar too, adding more to the overall sound and timing itself just really well. Not overstaying its welcome. Standard songs include Don't Stay, From the Inside, Faint, Somewhere I Belong, and my favourite in Breaking the Habit. Despite taking a few risks, this album is very rewarding. Everyone plays their part excellently, the production is solid, it's got really great tricks thrown in there, and the little bits of experimentation really help to complement the balance and structure. I can recommend this one with no problem. It's what a sequel album should be. We then reach the band's third album, Minutes to Midnight. Released in 2007, the label stayed the same, but there's a change in producers as Don Gilmour was replaced by Musical Santa, or just Rick Rubin, as well as Linkin Park's own Mike Shinoda helping out as well. It's also the longest time period between albums for the band, with 4 years between this and Meteora. So yeah, this album would be the first full-on indication of the band's ever-changing sound. It's something that was teased in Meteora, and it was made much more apparent on this album. This time there's more of a rock approach to things, and the structure in the album lends itself to that quite well. This also might contain the weirdest time I listened to an album, since a friend of mine at school had it on MP3. Remember those? Anyway, he played it all during a playground break, and I listened to it with him, making it maybe the first album I ever listened to all the way through with someone else, not to mention maybe the first and only album I ever heard all the way through on an MP3. That in mind, I had my own opinion on the album back then, and it's not changed much today, and that opinion is that this album is still pretty good. It's one of those things where it's a necessity for the band to take a step back, and it works. It also, somewhat ironically, contains the band's heaviest song in Given Up, which contains an 18-second long scream by Chester Bennington during the bridge of the song. There's a lot of new things tried, actually. There's not as much of a rapcore feel with the turntables of Joe Hahn not appearing so much as they did before. In that same vein, Mike's rapping isn't as prominent, and when it is, it's more of his own thing. In fact, the only song that I can think of where both singers actually have full lines is Bleed It Out. It's probably the most Linkin Park sounding song on the album. Sure, they both kind of sing clean on the closing song, The Little Things Give You Away, but I don't really count that since Mike's clean vocals are more of a backing thing, if anything. They also feel like they take way too much of a backseat sometimes, and the track order of the album is also weird. We start with a good instrumental intro track, then we get Given Up, then after that is the more somber song Leave Out All the Rest, then after that is Bleed It Out. It's just a bit weird. Lyrically, the band aims for a more political lilt, and it kind of works, but they do stick to all subject matter when it matters, so that's a smart decision. Chester's vocals are still great, as is performance, especially in Given Up. Mike's rapping isn't on here a lot, but when it is, it's still pretty good, although his backing vocal role is filled quite well. Brad finally gets some guitar solos, and he's actually pretty good with them. Just really good flair, really good scales, and just good notes. Phoenix's bass work is more prominent here, adding a nice and chunky layer to things. Hans DJ work isn't here often, but when it is, it does sound really good. And Rob's drumming works well for a more rock-focused sound, hitting the snare heavy and just playing good patterns to fit that role. Standard songs include Leave Out All the Rest, What I've Done, No More Sorrow, In Pieces, and my favourite, In Given Up. It's a weird whiplash of a change in sound, but it was a pull on the reins that the band needed, and despite the weird track placement, it is still a good album and I can still recommend it. It's safe to be a bit cautious if you're going in blind though, but yeah, it's still really good, so give it a shot if you can. We then reach the band's fourth album, A Thousand Suns. Released in 2010, we don't got the same producers, the same record labels and such, and this is the band's longest album at 47 minutes and 48 seconds. Weirdly, I was trying to avoid this album at first when the album's lead single, The Catalyst, was released. I just never really fully got into that song, but then later in that same year, I happened to download the demo for EA Sports MMA, and the song Wretches the Kings from this album isn't just on that game's soundtrack, but is the intro song for that game. It instantly got me back into things, and I actually listened to the album and wound up liking it a lot more than I thought I would. It does have a more industrial feel to it, but the most remarkable thing is the more political stance that this album takes. In fact, the songs The Radiance, the aforementioned Wretches and Kings, and Wisdom, Justice and Love contain speeches from J. Robert Oppenheimer, Mario Savio, and Martin Luther King Jr. respectively, and the album's title is based on something that Gandhi said. So, yeah. Having said that, with those people appearing, I don't know if that technically makes this album the band's first with guest stars because of that, especially since all those people are, dead. Still, this album has some damn good production. It has more of an organic and natural feeling to it, whereas most of the elements in Minutes to Midnight felt kind of forced at times. But it's handled a lot better here, and the more industrial sound helps guide things along. The band didn't really perfect that, but they found a good balance early with it and learned from their past mistakes. This album is basically kind of what you get if you mash Minutes to Midnight and Meteora together. Well, you get that in two broken discs, not to mention blood on your hands from all the cuts on the glass, and it would just be a huge mess. But this album isn't a mess, much to my initial surprise. At the age of 18, I was judging it a lot more by the cover, and I guess I've changed, much like the band's sound does. Hell, one of the songs even has Chester rapping for a change, much like the third album with Mike Shinoda singing cleanly. The album's got a good structure for its songs, and there's surprisingly positive and well thought out political lyrics to carry along well. Chester's vocals focus on a cleaner style, but it works for him a bit better this time, and his range still baffles me with how good it is. There's more actual rapping from Mike, but once again, the chemistry between him and Chester is still great. Brad doesn't have as many solos, but he lays a good beat and riff with his guitar, and there. Phoenix's bass work is surprisingly well pronounced, and the production does a great job of bringing it out. Han's work is once again damn good, and it's nice to have him shining a bit more compared to last time, just adding a good organic layer of things and really good samples and beats. And Rob's drumming carries a steady pace, diving himself greatly and just showing a really good amount of balance, because this album goes to a lot of places. Standout songs include Robot Boy, Burning in the Skies, Blackhead, Waiting for the End, and my favourite, In Riches and Kings. A Thousand Suns is chock full of surprises with a positive message, great production, and a nice, just organic feel to things. I could recommend this one more than I thought I would 8 years ago. Anyway, that's all about it for part 1 of the Linkin Park backtracking episode. Join me next time, maybe tomorrow, for part 2, where I'll cover the band's last 3 albums from Living Things to One More Light. So, see you tomorrow. Thank you for listening. You're awesome. Bye bye.